Hello, Drew Robinson here. I'm going to go through the assignment for American Christian Heritage that we have to do, and the individual I chose for the fundamentalist versus modernist controversy is I chose William Jennings Bryan. Okay, so he's involved in several things, but I'm going to go through this, try to go through this fairly quickly. Now, politically, he was involved. He ran for president 3 times as a member of the Democratic Party, but also as a member of the Progressive Party, known as the Great Commoner. He had a religious background and that he was brought up Presbyterian, very strong religious background. Um, and in 1896, he gives a very famous speech called the Cross of Gold speech. Right? My high school class, I have them read this every year. But essentially, what the speech is, remember, he's known as the Great Commoner. The speech compared the gold standard to, well, it uses very vivid imagery to crucify. He says, "You're crucifying mankind upon a cross of gold." So he was known as a political candidate who was representing the common man, the everyday farmer. He had strong support in the West and in the South. Okay, so some historians have looked at him as, say, like a new version of Jefferson with this agrarian idea politically. Okay, now they're very different religiously, but that's politically. So as he goes on through politics, now before he ran for president the last time, he went on a world speaking tour. Daniel Scroop's article, which I will cite in the notes here when I post this, he points out that people don't really look at his speaking tour, although it was wildly popular. In fact, he funded it himself. Historians have chosen to portray William Jennings Bryan negatively because of this fundamentalist view, and particularly the big thing is the Scopes trial, which we'll look at later. So we've kind of talked about the Scopes trial some in the class, but this is something that he was involved in. So Woodrow Wilson made him Secretary of State in 1912. So he still has a political career, but once his political career is over, and this is where the assignment is about, is he turns more of his focus to religion and this cause of fundamentalism. And so one of the things he did, he's one of the first to hold a religious radio show and preach on the radio. And at the Scopes trial, he represented John Scopes, right? He was a very big proponent of fundamentalism. Now, the article by Troy Murphy there, which I'll also post in the notes, he says Bryan saw the Scopes trial case primarily about the right of common people to decide democratically. Remember, he was a Democratic candidate for president. Some have compared him to Jefferson with these democratic agrarian ideals and what ought to be taught in schools. In other words, the people can decide it. All right, not the just the higher ups in government. So let's look at the Scopes trial and Bryan's involvement in it. Now, there's a popular notion that Troy Murphy talks about and basically dispels that he was ignorant, zany, deluded with his childish theology, that he was just so rooted in fundamentalism and that his views had evolved towards fundamentalism that it's just, he was ignorant. But he also says, look, Bryan's view was a democratic one. It was because it was principled on Christianity. People have the right to decide for themselves if they want to believe in fundamentalist argument or modernist argument, evolutionary argument, whatever. That was his view. Okay, so and it's also that his theories never evolved. In other words, Murphy draws a direct correlation in his article from the Cross of Gold speech, right? These ideas of, hey, it's everyday man. I think actually in the speech, I'm going to kind of paraphrase it. He says, look, the man who toils all day in the farm and works all day in the heat is as much a businessman as a broker in New York City and Wall Street. Right? It's the same, right? That's why he's again known as the Great Commoner. He's for the common people, the farmers. Actually, like I said, I had my students read that speech. But that's where a lot of the historian or a lot of people say that he's just got so rooted in this fundamentalist idea that it convoluted his views, but actually his views were very consistent throughout his whole life. Okay, uh, with from that Cross of Gold speech in 1896 all the way through representing Scopes in the Scopes trial 1924. So that's what 28 years later. So his legacy, it says, and one of the things I looked at was the PBS article, which I also post. He was progressive in politics, so some of the things he did. Remember, he was a member of the Progressive Party and also the Democratic Party. But the things he called for, the direct election of senators, 8-hour workday, these are things that are federal income tax. Okay, that's the 16th Amendment, federal income tax. 17th Amendment, direct election of senators. These are things that were put into use. All right, so that is why he is, widely remembered. But he's conservative in religion. 5 days after the Scopes trial, with his fundamentalist view there, he died. So the tendency is to portray him as ignorant or so rooted in fundamentalism that, his legacy is kind of viewed scarred in a sense. All right, but remember, his view was the same always. All right, it was kind of the same. It never really truly evolved. He didn't become so rooted in it that distorted his views. But this is what he's known for, okay? The Scopes trial and then running for president 3 times. Now he lost 3 times, but 1896, 1900, 1908, all Democratic candidates. And then became Secretary of State after that, and then the Scopes trial as well. So those are some of the sources. I will post them when I post this video on the assignment.